The Memphis Grizzlies started this weekend without Morant, Marcus Smart, Desmond Bain, Vince Williams. You know what? A bunch of players. They started this weekend without a bunch of players, and most of you would have been fine if they would have just won one of the two games they played. But nope. Instead, the Grizzlies won two games by a combined 69 points. That wasn't happening last season. Is this season different? Let's talk about it right here on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal here in Memphis, Tennessee. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with us each and every single day. You're going solo with me today, Joe Monax. My co-host is getting a well-deserved day off, but appreciate you guys for being here with me. Remember that your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Grizzlies daily newsletter. It's the one-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right into your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Grizzlies newsletter. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. Gametime is the place to go because all you got to do is download the Gametime app and create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. That's for concerts, basketball games, any special event out there that you want to go to download the Gametime app. Take advantage of those opportunities. Speaking of taking advantage of opportunities, that's pretty much what the Grizzlies players did this weekend. It was a pretty successful weekend for the Grizzlies. Friday, you win a game by 24 points, 128-104 over the Washington Wizards. And then you turn around on Sunday and, just beat down the Portland Trailblazers. Couldn't find too many things that went wrong for the Grizzlies in that game. 134-89, 45-point win. And you're missing all these different players. You know, we touched on a few of the names in the opening there, but, I was watching those two games, and one thing that was going through my mind as I was watching the games, watching the performances of what was happening was, the first thing that people are going to say, and I'm one of people in a way, because there's a healthy balance here. It was the Wizards and it was the Blazers. That's true. But you know what? This Grizzlies team saw Portland early in the season last season, right? Remember that? Portland beat them. They were without Morant. They were, I think, a couple of like Luke Kennard. There were a bunch of players missing at that time as well. But still, the Grizzlies lost to a bad Portland team. Wasn't happening this year. You're starting to see a lot of the things that have been talked about in the offseason really kind of come to fruition with this team 11 games in. So right now the Grizzlies have won 5 of 6, right? They won 5 out of 6 games. The paint scoring is elite again. 58 points in the paint in this last game. But so many different contributors is what stood out to me. If you go back 2 games ago against the Wizards, Jaren Jackson Jr., 39 points. Scottie Pippen Jr., how about that? Scottie Pippen Jr. making NBA history along with his father, the first father-son duo to have triple doubles in NBA history. So, Scottie Pippen is the Hall of Fame basketball player, 6-time NBA champion of Chicago Bulls. Scottie Pippen Jr. now joins his father, first father-son duo with triple doubles. And he did that against the Wizards with 11 points, 11 assists, and 10 rebounds. So those two guys kind of stood out from the Washington game. And from the Portland game, it was everybody. I mean, pick your poison. You close your eyes, go on the Grizzlies roster, pick one of the healthy guys out of a hat, and we could talk about why they played well. Like, that's pretty much what kind of game it was for the Grizzlies in that 45-point win. 7 players overall in double figures, and these weren't cheapies either. Like seven players pretty much finished between 20 and 12 points. Complete balance from the Grizzlies. Jaren Jackson Jr. led the way with 20 points. Didn't have to touch the floor in the fourth quarter. Jalen Wells, just gonna keep saying it, man. I mean, this guy is playing like he's been here before, and there were just a couple moments where I just found myself shaking my head in this past game. The turnaround jumper, it wasn't even this one. It was the last game. It was the Wizards game where I think shot clock was riding down or whatever, and he attempted a turnaround jump shot and missed it. But I was so impressed. Like again, it to me, it's how comfortable do you look in those situations? Because it's a make or miss league. You take that shot. Do you look comfortable taking that shot? Is that a shot where you say, "Oh, that's a repeatable thing for him"? And it looked repeatable. He missed the shot. I think it rimmed out. But he was it. You could tell that he practices that shot basically. And lo and behold, a game later, attempts the same shot coming baseline. Looks like he has nowhere to go. Says, you know what? Gives the guy a bump, turns around, hits the turnaround jumper, and I'm like, that's polish right there. That's vets. That's stuff you see the older shooter guards in the NBA. That's a move they're usually doing. So I mean, Jalen Wells continuing to put it together, but even beyond that, Santi Aldama. Again, 16 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. We talked a lot lately about the ability of Santi Aldama to beyond the three-point shot. I think earlier in his career, it was like, oh, you need Sonny to stretch the floor and knock down three-pointers, but you're not going to make threes every single game. In this game, he made 2 or 4 threes, but still 7 of 11 shooting from the field. So you take away the three-pointers, he made 5 of 7 shots, 2-point field goals. Even beyond that, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, filling the stat sheet up for Sonny Aldama. The list goes on. Scottie Pippen Jr. gave you 17. Brandon Clark, 9.6 rebounds, knocked down a three-pointer, plus 20. We're going to talk about that part of Brandon Clark's game a little bit later in the show. But off the bench, Zach Edey, 12 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 5-7 shooting from the field. Did have 6 turnovers, but overall, another solid performance of him coming off the bench. Jake LaRavia, talking more about him later in the show as well. 18 points coming off the bench. John Conchar gave you 6 rebounds, 4 points as well. And Luke Kennard only scored 3 points. We talk about it a lot with Santi. Like, when your three-point shot is not working, because these are the guys who are kind of, in a way, relied on to be some of the better three-point shooters on the Grizzlies, what can you do? And that's been a question for Luke Kennard pretty much his entire NBA career. And in this game, he said, okay, I can give you a career high 11 assists. And if you watch the game, that is one of the reasons why this new Grizzlies offense is going to make some of these guys kind of expand their games a little bit. Luke Kennard playing with pace, finding cutters. Again, I remember when, Ja Morant went down, I asked Taylor Jenkins, I said, what do you do when Scottie Pippen Jr. isn't on the floor now? Because there are going to be a lot of minutes without Scottie Pippen Jr. And that was the case in this game as well as some other games as well. Scottie Pippen Jr. only played 21 minutes. So you're talking about 20 or so minutes, because Yuki Kawamura did play the last 7 or so minutes of the game. So you're talking about roughly 20 minutes of game time where you didn't really have a point guard on the floor. Well, the Grizzlies, what they did in this game is they played great defense. You held Portland to 89 points. You held Portland to 34% shooting. Portland went 4 of 42 on three-point shots. Ooh, this modern NBA, man. Because look, if you get to a point at halftime, I'm not even talking about 3 quarters. If we get to halftime and you're shooting that's 10%. 4 of 42, you're shooting that bad from three-point range. Look, we drive the basketball. But modern NBA, everybody got to get up these threes. The Grizzlies got up 43 threes themselves and made 16 of them. But anyways, we're talking about the defense right now. You hold a team to 10% shooting on three-pointers, 34% shooting from the field. That allows the Grizzlies to get out, use that pace, and that's why Luke Kennard in particular was able to get out and run, find cutters, and really get good, easy passing and playmaking opportunities for himself and for his teammates. So he was a beneficiary of the Grizzlies' new system, I think, in that game. The Grizzlies also had 28 stocks. 28 stocks. 15 steals, 13 blocks. That is the most stocks in a Grizzlies game since November 8, 2002. Want to know who led the Grizzlies in steals that day? Brevin Knight. the play-by-play guy, or excuse, not play-by-play, the color analyst on FanDuel Sports, the Grizzlies team commentary. So shout out to Brevin Knight for leading the Grizzlies in steals on that day. But all around, a terrific performance from the Grizzlies in this game. Jay Huff had 6 of those blocks, and Zach Edey led the way in steals with 4 steals of his own. So again, the depth that the Grizzlies are developing is noteworthy. I'm ready to see it. We'll talk more about the depth later on in the show. I don't want to get too deep into that right now. We'll talk more about it a little bit later. But this was an encouraging weekend. I think me and Joe talked about it before the weekend that you'll be happy with winning one of the 2 games. And the Grizzlies won both. And they didn't just win both. They went into the fourth quarter with their feet kicked up both times. So that was impressive. Largest win over the Portland Trailblazers in franchise history. Had Chauncey Billups cutting up after the game. I mean, he had some things to say about Portland's effort in this game, but a lot of that was contributed to the Grizzlies, and some of that is just Portland is a terribly constructed roster right now. Like, there were times I saw Robert Williams and Donovan Clingan, running together in the front court. So I'm like, ew, it's a 2006 type of lineup you got going here where, neither of those guys are really give you much 3-point shooting and spacing in today's league. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. A good win for the Grizzlies in both of those games against the Wizards at home. Then you went on the road against Portland now for the first time this season. I know Grizzlies players are excited about this. For the first time this season, the Grizzlies get 2 days off in between games. They played more games than anyone in the league at this point. So finally, the Grizzlies get a chance, get a couple days off, get a little bit of rest, and maybe get a player back real soon. Coming up here next on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to talk about Jake LaRavia, Mr. Do-It-All. He got to get his flowers for the way he's playing as of late. So let's talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we talk about Jake LaRavia and the great things that he's done for the Memphis Grizzlies of late, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Listen up. FanDuel right now. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel because it is America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you can bet $5 and you get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All you got to do is win a $5 bet. Make it easy on yourself. Then you get $150 in bonus bets. Go right now to FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Coming up here next on Locked On Grizzlies, let's talk Jake LaRavia. He's been doing some great things as of late. He needs his flowers, man. Let's talk Jake LaRavia here on Locked On Grizzlies. Jake LaRavia in this game, I call him Mr. Do-It-All. Mr. Do-It-All because that's kind of what his role is becoming with the Grizzlies as of right now. And I talked to him before the Wizards game. We talked on Friday, I believe it was. And, he said it in the post-game interview as well, after Sunday's game. He was player of the game. Brevin Knight and Pete Pranica made him player of the game in this last game. And he talked about, he keeps saying, I just want to be a dog for this team. I just want to be a dog. And if you look at Jake LaRavia, he's got these scars on his arm. He's got this scar right above his, right beside his eyebrow, across from his eye, like he has another scar. And all those are just battle scars from throwing your body on the line, diving all over the floor, getting hit with some elbow here, elbow there, guys scratching and clawing on you. And he's becoming kind of a, for a lack of better words, like a jumbo, maybe a jumbo Marcus Smart in a way, from a guy who can just do the dirty work for you, and maybe even a better version of John Conchar. I mean, he rebounds well. He's passing effectively. the defense in this game, this was the summer league defense that we saw from Jake LaRavia. It was impressive. I think he had 3 blocks, 3 steals in this game, but 18 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 6 of 9 shooting from the field, 2 of 3 on 3-pointers. But it was the 3 blocks and the 3 steals that really caught my eye for Jake LaRavia. And you know what? Who knows? When everyone's healthy and all that, what his standing on this roster will look like from a rotation standpoint, consistent minutes and all that. But as of right now, Jake LaRavia is giving this team exactly what it needs. Game after game. I mean, he has been, listen up, Jake LaRavia has been one of the Grizzlies' most consistent players to this point of the season. You're probably saying, "Oh, Mike, I don't believe that." Well, let me get into the numbers. Because take this game out. This game actually ended a streak for him. And this was probably his best game of the season. And it ended a streak that he was on. You go back to the Washington game. Jake LaRavia had 9 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. You go back to the Lakers game, 6 of 11 shooting, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists. So again, at least 5 boards, at least 5 assists. Then you go back to the Brooklyn Nets game, only 6 points. Guess what? 5 rebounds, 6 assists. 3 consecutive games going into the Portland game with at least 5 boards, with at least 5 assists. This is just what he's been doing this season. He's shooting 49% from the field overall this season. Efficient basketball. And this is what, remember that Brooklyn game, he shot 1 of 10 in the first matchup against Brooklyn, the one that was at home against the Nets. But so he's shooting 49% from the field with that stinker mixed in there. 26 minutes a game. He's averaging 9 points. He's averaging over 5.5 rebounds. Again, giving you some of that rebounding that John Conchar has given the Grizzlies, over the course of the last few years. 3.8 assists per game. He's a better version of John Conchar at this point. And one, he's bigger. I think this is something when the Grizzlies drafted Jake LaRavia. I remember going all the way back to the draft introductory press conference 2022, and we were talking to Jake LaRavia, talking to David Roddy and those guys. And the idea was that those 2 players can be jumbo forwards. They can play the 3. They can move down to the 4 in the pinch, play alongside of Jaren Jackson Jr. when he moves to the 5, and be effective rebounders in that lineup. Jake can do that. He can do that. This is what you needed Jake to be. I know everybody wanted him when he was drafted in the first round to be this highly efficient 3-point sharpshooter that was just going to be filling it up from 3-point range. That hasn't really been the case. And quite frankly, if you look at his numbers in college, and he even pointed this out to me, he's always been kind of this do-it-all guy. Because when I asked him about it, I was like, is this just, your way of kind of finding your niche with the Grizzlies? Is it saying, you know what? I'm not just going to be a guy just shooting 3-pointers here. I got to find other ways to be on the court. He's like, this is who I was. This is who I was. I've always been a solid rebounder. Guy who can pass the ball a little bit. A guy who can do this. A guy who can do that. So all these factors have come into play of what Jake LaRavia can do and what he is. And now for the first time in his career, we're 3 years in with Jake LaRavia, and this is the first time in his career I'm looking and I'm saying, I know what Jake LaRavia can bring to the table for this team. You've always said, you hear the players, every offseason, not every offseason, last 2 offseasons, Jake LaRavia's been a guy who said, he can take that jump. Last year it was like, it was the shooting we kept talking about. But now you're starting to see the real. You see a guy who's shooting 49% from the field, who is pretty much fine with if he has to score 5 points, because he's going to find other ways of being effective. That's what we're talking about with Santi Aldama as of late. That's what you need to see from Luke Kennard. That's how you find your way on the floor, because at the end of the day, when Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., those caliber of scorers are on the floor, you're not going to get a chance to score 20 points on most nights. Like, the ball just isn't going to find your hands consistently as a scorer on the offensive end that much. But you know what you can do? You can be a secondary playmaker and get those guys involved. Jake LaRavia is doing that right now. You know what you can do? If they miss a shot, you can go crash that offensive glass, keep the play going. Jake LaRavia is doing that right now. You can get out and run. You could be an active defender on the defensive end. As I just said, 6 stocks in his last game. And they were real. They were real too, especially the steals. I mean, a lot of that was just having quick hands, which is something we've seen from him. You know, a lot is, like I said, going back to Summer League, Jake LaRavia has really demonstrated that. So just like I've been saying a couple times, like these weren't the greatest opponents in the world, you know, by any stretch of the imagination, these last 2 games in particular. But I think we're starting to build a larger sample size with Jake LaRavia. And you know what? It's always something when those players play in those contract years, man. Like this is a big year. The Grizzlies ended up declining Jake LaRavia's option and whatnot. So he's got a lot to play for. Like he's playing pretty much for his NBA future. There's a lot of money on the line of him right now. And he is pretty much taking advantage of the opportunity by becoming this Mr. Do-It-All type of player. This is a big development, if you ask me, because, again, this is how you develop depth. This is how the Grizzlies will continue to find players who will make impacts even when you have the likes of Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. on the court. You don't want guys to get lost in watching those guys do their thing and whatnot. You need guys to still be high-level impact players. So far this season, there haven't been a lot of Grizzlies players who have demonstrated that better than Jake LaRavia. Coming up here next on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to talk about that depth a little bit more, because is it real? Is it some of it fake? Is it just because of the schedule so far and the opportunity? And let's talk about this Grizzlies depth here next on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get to that, today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime. Look, I went to the Rod Wave concert this past weekend, the sold-out Rod Wave concert at FedEx Forum. You know how I got my tickets? I used Gametime, because Gametime is the premier place to go watch any live event that you want to check out there. And listen up, Gametime, let me tell you how you can go support Gametime right now for yourself, because Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You get all-in pricing. So we're talking toggling through features that show the totals up front with no surprise fees at checkout. There's no ta-da about Gametime. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And this is my favorite part, because you get the lowest price guarantee. So Gametime will give you the lowest price guarantee out there. And if it's not the lowest price guarantee, you will get credited 110% of the difference from Gametime. Your ticket coverage is also, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. All you got to do is right now, go take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Go take advantage of these opportunities. Gametime picks, concerts, basketball games, football games, however you want to take in these live events. Gametime is the place to go take advantage of that right now. So go download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONGrizzlies for $20 off your first purchase. Again, this is different now. Terms apply. Again, all you got to do is create an account and redeem the code. Spell out LOCKED, LOCKED, capital O-N, and then Grizzlies for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it, everybody? It's game time here on Locked On Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are showcasing this depth, man, and it's impressing me. But the question is, how real is it? How real is the depth that we've seen? Because, you know, every now and then we gotta play devil's advocate here, because, you know, as the saying goes, you never get too high, you never get too low. I mean, if you look at that Portland game, you think, oh, this is the greatest team in the world. But a lot of teams aren't as bad as Portland. Matter of fact, it's probably like 25 or so that are better than that. You look at that Wizards game, man, that was really impressive. It's probably like 25 teams better than them too. So, like we just talked about with Jake LaRavia, like he just consistently shown this ability to be this guy that, hey, if I'm going to shoot 1 for 10, I'm going to do this. If I'm going to score 18 points and not have as many rebounds and assists, I'm going to give you 3 blocks and 3 steals, or whatever the case may be. These next couple games, and we'll talk about it as they get closer, the Lakers and the Warriors, those next couple games will be very good indicators, I would say, on what this Grizzlies depth can be. You also have the pending return of Marcus Smart. Ja Morant's going to be out for some time. We didn't really touch on that earlier in the show, but we got the update, the official update on Ja Morant. He's listed this week to week. I'm going to get more information as I get out to Los Angeles on tomorrow, and we'll learn more going into Wednesday's game. And I'll report all that here on Locked On Grizzlies, as well as finding my work on the Commercial Appeal. And you can also see some of that on X, on social media, at Damichael C under my channel, on my X account. So we'll have all the latest on Ja Morant. But again, I saw him up close. He wasn't really walking that great. I think most of you, if you've been tuned into the games as of late, you've seen him kind of being assisted with the crutches and whatnot. So it's going to be a little bit of an absence for Ja here. But all things considered, I think this is probably best case scenario. Week to week for Ja Morant is much better than month to month. So with all that being said, this depth is going to is going to get tested. And you got in season, well, not they don't call it the in season tournament anymore. I got to break that. I got to learn to break that. You got the NBA Cup coming up, which is the tournament. It is an in season tournament, but you got a lot of big games. You got Lakers, motivated Lakers. We'll see what happens with Anthony Davis. He got hit in the eye in the last game, left the game. The Lakers called it precautionary, but he left the game early, and we'll see kind of what happens on that front with the Lakers and whatnot. But here's the thing about this Grizzlies depth that I want to talk about. There's three things. We do have to admit that better teams will challenge the Grizzlies and test that depth. I can't wait to see, what that looks like over these next two games. The Warriors right now look like one of the deepest teams in the NBA as well. They got Steph Curry and a bunch of guys who just pretty much know how to play their roles. DeAnthony Melton just returned for the Warriors, and they got him in the starting lineup, and Steve Kerr says he likes him in the starting lineup. So you're going to see DeAnthony Melton starting against the Grizzlies really soon. That's going to be fun to watch. So the Warriors have a lot of depth. There are a bunch of other teams that come to mind as well who have battle-tested depth. The Grizzlies don't have as much battle-tested depth, I guess you would say. This is pretty much a product of last season in a way, and then good drafting. Jalen Wells, Zach Edey, those guys are starting to, take advantage of the opportunities. But going back to kind of being a product of last season, one of those guys is Scottie Pippen Jr. How good of a find has he been for the Grizzlies? Memphis got him off the Lakers G League roster. And all he's done is prove everybody wrong over there. That's all he's done, prove everyone wrong in Lakers land. Whether it be Darvin Ham in that game against the Bucks, and he said, yeah, they got a coach over there who didn't believe in me. Or the Lakers. And he said, yeah, they didn't believe in me. They didn't believe in me. They didn't think I was capable of this. My question was for Scottie Pippen Jr. was always, because if you've been, shout out to the everydayers. The everydayers know I've been a longtime believer in Scottie Pippen Jr. as a backup point guard, future backup point guard for the Grizzlies. That spot is solidified as long as he's under this 4-year contract. He's the backup. My only question was, and of course you can ask this question with any backup. It's not really a tough question. It's just, how effective would he be as the starting point guard? And I asked that question because we saw how good Tyus Jones was at it. And I don't think he has to replicate exactly that. Tyus Jones was winning games at a pace where the Grizzlies could have won 50 games with him as a starting point guard. I don't think you have to replicate that type of success, but you got to win the games that you should win. And these last two games were games that the Grizzlies should win. And in these last two games, we saw Scottie get a triple-double, but we saw him have a clean, efficient, effective performance in this last game. Like I said, 17 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, a block, did have 3 turnovers, but clean basketball for the most part. And he's making his name on the defensive end. I think what he's doing is real for what this team. And what I also like, and everybody's not going to love this, some people will, because we touched on this a little bit in a couple episodes ago. We were talking about Zach Edey. I love what the Grizzlies are doing at center. I love it. That's why you get these versatile options. Brandon Clark has started the last two games. Sure, he's not throwing up the old Brandon Clark numbers where he's averaged double figures pretty much every other season in his career. He's not averaging double figures right now. And it's weird. It is a little weird not seeing Brandon Clark be that instant offense that he's always been. But you know what's not weird? What's not weird is seeing Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. be on the floor together and just completely dominate opposing teams. That's still happening. These last two games, you're seeing Brandon Clark in the starting lineup, and you're also seeing Jaren Jackson Jr. play some of his best basketball. Jaren Jackson Jr. has been, without a doubt, the best player on the Grizzlies, and he's playing at the all-star level these last couple games, without a doubt. So I like the fact that they're leaning into the fact that, you know what, Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. works really well for us. Let's keep that going. And then you got Zach Edey as an option. And then you got Jay Huff as an option. They're playing all three of these guys right now. That wasn't really something I saw happening. It was always going to be typically two bigs, with Edey and maybe Brandon Clark. But Jay Huff he's playing so well. I mean, 6 blocks. What is Peep? Shout out to Peep Panicker. He calls them the Huff Snuffs. He has 6 Huff Snuffs in this last game against the Blazers. But it's not just that with Jay Huff. It's the 12 points, knocking down a couple tray balls as well. The rim protection has been plus for him. So you got 3 legit options at center, and these guys all give you something different. You get the three in addition to the shot blocking with Jay Huff. You get Brandon Clark's ability to play alongside of Jaren Jackson Jr., his defensive versatility. Of those 3 guys, Brandon Clark is the most comfortable, is the one you're most comfortable with saying, hey, when he gets on the floor, we're switching everything. We're going to take these teams out of their plays. We're going to make them beat us by becoming individual isolation scorers. You can do that better with Brandon Clark than you can with the other 2 options. Then, of course, Zach Edey gives you this forcefulness. The Grizzlies have the top offensive rebound percentage in the NBA right now. You know why that's the case? Zach Edey. He has the best offensive rebound percentage on the team, one of the best in the NBA. And that was something I was concerned about coming into the season because you know who used to lead the NBA in that stat when he played for the Grizzlies? Steven Adams. But without Steven Adams over the last season and a half, the Grizzlies struggled in that area. Lo and behold, now you got Zach Edey, who is really giving you some forcefulness on the offensive glass. So I can't wait to see how this depth continues to take stage. We're going to talk more about that depth when Joe Mullinax joins us on the next show as well. But don't forget, everybody, that your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Grizzlies Daily Newsletter. It's your one-stop shop for the ultimate team and league coverage delivered right into your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Grizzlies newsletter. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me on today. As I said a little bit earlier, on the next episode of Locked On Grizzlies, you'll be back with me and Joe Monax, and we'll break down all things Grizzlies. Maybe we'll talk about the John Morant injury a little bit more, but we're definitely going to talk about this depth. There's something else to be said about the depth and what this team is doing before we end up previewing the next game coming up against the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to be in Los Angeles and San Francisco for those next 2 games. So you'll have wall-to-wall coverage here on Locked On Grizzlies. And you can also check me out on commercialappeal.com, where I'll be posting all my stories and content, and all that content will also be posted on the X site as well at Damichael C. But appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. Remember that Locked On Grizzlies is free and available wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.